Okay. Hello and welcome to another wonderful interview. Today I have with me Vinny Red Vox of Vinesauce. Shit.
You're good. Take it again. You should see how many takes my Hawaiian snacks video took.
Hello and welcome to another wonderful interview. Today I have with me Vinny Vinesauce of the band Red Vox. Since 2015, Vinny has been the frontman for the band across their 5, soon-to-be 6 albums and 2 EPs. Vinny, thank you for making the time to be here. How have you been today?
Well, thank him. 'Cause this guy's got a very busy schedule. So I was free, but he had to move a lot around, and it's a shame. He was going to talk with the president, not our president, his president. But it would have been real cool. So, but next time, next time. I'm doing fine, by the way. I'm good. Thank you.
If we could, I'd like to start off about the TooManyGames live performance because it's your first live performance in 8 years publicly. It's your
Yeah.
fourth performance overall, and I think it went pretty well. How's the band morale been?
Yeah, right now we're just relaxing. The weather's been incredibly hot and we're finding ways to stay cool. But it was a great show for us. We had a lot of fun doing it. We prepared for it. There's always room for improvement, which is like kind of a motivational factor. You do a show and then you're like, oh, what can we do better? Or what songs can we add to the set list? Or how can I improve personally as a musician? And so it was motivating to see that many people that actually cared about the music because a lot of it's just people leaving comments. But then actually being in person and playing to like whatever that was, 700 people or so, I don't even know the number, and seeing people actually really enjoy it in real life made me want to work even harder. So band morale's good. Everyone had a great time. And now we relax for a bit and maybe look to the future. We're working on another album, as you know, and then who knows? Maybe we'll try to get a couple shows in.
Oh, hi guys. I'm Saki. I'm the channel editor in case you wanted to know. Just a little reminder. I know a couple of you guys want to support Red Vox, and in case you don't know, a big way to show support is actually by following their Instagram. So down below, you'll see their Instagram. Give them a follow, interact with their posts, and we'll share it to other rock fans, you know? Um, Back to the video, I guess. Before Red Vox, and I could be mistaken, but also before Davies Gray, you had released a few projects under the name Vine. What was your musical progression like with Ethereality, Sibilance, Rooms to Breathe, and Odds and Ends?
So the timeline is a little weird on Bandcamp. So Davies Gray was actually before a lot of that stuff. However, some of those ideas that you hear on those albums were written before Davies Gray. So it's kind of weird because when you upload stuff, it just kind of ends up being kind of confusing. And when I finished Sibilance, for example, that was, I was uploading a couple songs at a time. And, then some stuff on Ether Reality, which was not really an album, it was just more demos. Some of that stuff was way before Davies Gray, and some of it was during. So, for me, music, I was like 18, got a guitar, and weirdly, I wasn't content to just play. Like, I learned a lot of songs from a lot of bands I liked, but I always liked writing as a concept. I was a creative kid, and I like to draw terrible, stupid things and make levels in video games. So what I ended up doing was, after learning how to play a couple chords and figuring out what even the guitar as an instrument is, I would just create my own little ideas, just kind of watch TV, mindlessly play a little bit, and I would record into Mixcraft, which is this freeware program that's not even that great, but it got the job done. So some of those recordings are done there. And then Bill, who's in Red Vox, actually got me into FL Studio. And that was not really designed for recording rock songs necessarily. Now it's perfectly acceptable as a DAW. You can use it for almost anything. But FL Studio, I figured out how to make like drum beats and loops and try different synthesizer sounds. And that was enough of a motivation. I thought it was so fun and addictive that I just kept going. And I even have some demos that are not on Bandcamp that are way worse than the ones on Bandcamp. But that just continued to lead into more and more. And then I realized something, that the writing to me was just as fun, if not more so, or rewarding rather than the playing. And I do like playing guitar, and I even like singing, which is, not my primary instrument by any means, but it's fun. And so that all said, though, writing is my favorite thing to do. That like process of discovery of like what could this song be, or when you stumble upon an idea that gets stuck in your own head for like a couple weeks, that's as rewarding as any other part of music.
Branching off that and your experimental past with Mixcraft or FL Studio, can we talk about the Welshman from Ethereality? Because that's definitely one of the oddballs that stick out to me from that period.
Yeah. So don't remember what the program was, but it was some voice program, it wasn't Skype. It was like a mumble type program from like 20 years ago. And me and some friends I haven't thought about this in years, but me and some friends jumped into a public call or a public area or something. It's kind of fuzzy, but and this guy, I think he was Welsh, and he was trying his best to communicate, and he was just kind of like a funny fella. And I recorded it, and I don't know why, but I just went into FL Studio and looped his voice, just saying things, and then became a song. But it was kind of cool because it was weirdly like a seed of some dumb idea that turned into me discovering how to do additional things in FL Studio, and then I just had fun making the song. But yeah, it's one of the weirdest ones. So now you know the story of whatever that is.
I know Joe isn't the biggest fan of jam bands, but has a full instrumental album like Sibilance come across as an idea while working on Red Vox?
I know that there's been ideas for instrumental tracks, but in terms of instrumental like album kind of thing, that doesn't sound like something I would want to do. I wouldn't mind putting together an EP of pure instrumental stuff, like just like 4 or 5 songs. But a lot of my favorite music that doesn't have vocals is like video game music or scores for movies. So that's not really the ability I have. I tend to write more like rock, that's a little more pop centric, but like stuff from the early 90s, that kind of thing, and stuff that almost demands a verse, chorus, bridge, post chorus kind of thing. So to me, the way I write usually ends up being well suited for vocals and lyrics. And if ever in the future that changes and I write something that's a little more organic, I could see it being an instrumental.
Around the time Davies Gray was recorded, and a few years after that, you were smoking until you eventually quit around, I want to say 2013 or 2014. Since then, you've been smoke free and still continue to record vocals with Fry, even in as recent as the Remember single. How have you adapted in terms of your vocals?
I think the cigarettes were a crutch and never really necessary. It's more about technique and just screaming, really. I mean, I don't know how many more years of screaming I have ahead of me, and it's not something that I want to focus on, but some songs need that. The type of music I like, the type of music I make, once in a while there's a song that comes along, it's like, man, this would be so much better if I could just belt out that chorus. But I definitely am able to do it with practice, with, you know, learning how to not just scream and blow out my voice, but knowing where to make that sound, like from the diaphragm, and like how to do it in a more sustainable way. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't really know. It just kind of happens. But I will say, when we started practicing again for shows, it took a couple months to get back to the point where I could sing Reno. and because I hadn't been doing that kind of singing. And there's a song that we recorded that's unreleased as of now that probably isn't even going to be on our next album. That is probably the screamiest song I've ever done. And that was before we started practicing for shows. So that one was also just like come in after, a couple days in a row and just blow out my voice to the point where I could barely speak. However, since practice though, I've been able to do like a show or even run through the set list twice with several songs where I have to kind of scream and still have my voice and still be able to talk. And again, I think it's just little by little practice and realizing that, yeah, sure, cigarettes can definitely rasp up your voice, but it's probably not worth it. It's probably not worth it. It wasn't worth it for me, so I'm glad I stopped.
Is Reno the benchmark for your scream vocals for you then? No.
Atom Bomb.
Atom Bomb, okay.
Reno is more, the thing about Reno is I kind of want to get those clean. And I feel like I did an okay job at TMG where I was doing a way better job in practice, but that's a whole other thing. Our show couldn't really hear myself. There's a number of different factors. And also being on stage is very different than singing in a room that you're used to. But Reno is something that I like to get that chorus pretty clean, but it's only a couple of them. Whereas Atom Bomb, the whole song, every chorus until the end is a very loud, high pitch, not high pitch, but like higher register scream. So that one is the benchmark. If I can make it through Atom Bomb without losing my voice, great. And even in 2016, when we were doing some shows, we did 2 shows in like 2016. Couldn't get through Atom Bomb without my voice completely giving in. So, that's the one. If I can do that one, then I can do the whole set.
That's good to know. That's good for fans to know. How many songs were based around video games, like Ghost Page originally being about a Final Fantasy VI boss before Mike put a kibosh on them?
I remember that a little differently.
Oh.
I do. There's the thing about that is I knew the term Ghost Train. He might have helped. I'm not going to deny that Mike probably was like, Vin, come on. But I definitely knew Ghost Train was a terrible name. And there could only be one Ghost Train, and that's the train from Final Fantasy VI. So I'm going to say that I knew pretty quickly that was a silly thing, but it's hard to remember. Honestly, going back 9 years, it's one of those things that you just don't know. I'll give you another example. Okay, so I found a notebook recently of lyrics from Another Light, actually handwritten. And I had it in my mind that I didn't write as many of those lyrics as I thought I did. There's a good chunk of those songs nearly completely done in that notebook. So, and I thought it was like more iterative over time, but turns out I had like, for In the Garden, I had like 60% of it already there. So, and I just didn't remember that. And the only way I was able to remember any of that is I found the notebook. But I'll tell you this, sometimes you come up with a dumb idea for a song because the syllables fit. And then you have to think for a second, no, you don't, that's not something you want to sing about. So unless we're talking Blood Bagel, in which case just put whatever you want in a Blood Bagel and just hope that it doesn't get people sick.
Yeah, we have our Rubber Band Man, our San Fernando from the Thanksgiving specials.
Yeah, there's always something silly on the horizon. I mean, Garbage Land, that was that song was Garbage Land was an attempt to just write something silly, because I think about Beck's lyrics, especially on his earlier albums, and that dude is singing about Cheese Whiz and just being a loser and just weird stuff. And it's like his lyrics don't make any sense, but yet they paint a very vivid picture. I don't think I have that ability exactly, but with Garbage Land, we had a song that sounded a little like a Beck song. And I'm like, well, what do I know? I know New York a little bit. And I thought rats would be a funny topic because it's either pigeons or rats. So it was just one of those things where just go with it. It's supposed to be a joke song. We released it on April Fools. Weirdly, it's one of the songs people like the most from us because it's so different. So I'm happy with the way that turned out. But it's no Ghost Train. It's no Ghost Train. And if Mike, you are the one that actually ended up stopping me from doing that, thank you.
Well, for that question, I specifically pulled that from a Red Vox Q&A on Reddit.
Okay.
Mike is quoted saying, Ghost Page was originally about a Final Fantasy VI boss, but I prevented that from happening because I'm a genius and Vin is a hack fraud.
Okay. Yeah.
To which you replied, I like when Saban suplexed the train, which is a completely fair argument.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that might have been a little tongue in cheek, but I mean, it's possible. I will say this. I never had any lyrics for Ghost Train. I just had a title. So I never started writing like Sabin suplexing the train. I was like, "Oh, what kind of story is that?" Well, no, I didn't go there. But honestly, these days that sounds like a great topic. I had a here's another joke song from back in the Davies Gray days. We had a song called Eight Different Mega Mans.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of that?
Yeah, that's on Odds and Ends.
Oh, okay. Wow, I forgot that it was even on there. That's embarrassing. Yeah, it's just dumb. But so video games are in my blood. I can't really escape from them, and I take inspiration from them and the music. I mean, Uematsu, composer of Final Fantasy, is still one of my biggest musical inspirations, easily. And so he sneaks in the music every now and then. But I'm sure there were more, and I just can't think of them. But weirdly, not as many as you would think. And I never, to branch off of that for a second, I went to MagFest this year and I saw a lot of bands that are, MagFest is Music and Games Fest. So I saw a lot of bands that do video game covers, video game themed songs, video game related music, and they were fantastic. They were so good. But for some reason, that was never something I actually wanted to do. I think my musical history was more the way the music I grew up with affected me and got me through hard times. And so I've always kind of reserved music as being more that, as opposed to we're just going to play a silly song about Mega Man, which was fun, but it didn't make it past Davies Gray. In fact, never even got recorded aside from that one terrible demo. So yeah.
You got a robot with a gun in his ass. You got another with a fist on his face.
You know this too well. You shouldn't. You should probably stop.
Sometimes when I'm vacuuming, I'll have the Vin playlist, and it's all the Vine projects back to back. I'm not kidding you. It's real. And if I'm one, then there's at least 10 other people that
there might be. There's tens of you. There's tens of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you should fear us.
I do.
We will sing the song at you when you least suspect it.
Oh, trust me, I fear you. I fear you. Not you, the royal you, the collective you. Yeah.
Similar to Mike playing drums on stream for charity, have you thought about doing something similar for vocals, guitar, or both? I know that's a pretty big hurdle to deal with when it comes to Twitch in general, but have you thought of a way to incorporate what you enjoy musically into some charity events?
Not really. I mean, it's a different thing for me. Even though I can make some like joke stuff or like mess around or just play a little guitar, I'm not as good off the cuff, for one. And two, I don't feel right just sitting here with a guitar right now with my alien watching. And like here I am trying to put together a song or doing an acoustic version of In the Garden. Like I don't want to be that guy who's like at the party with the guitar and Wonderwall. It's not me. I'd rather be up on stage with a band and prepared and, really, I mean, you saw the show. I was really enjoying it. I got into it. It's a little different for me. I can't see that being a path for me right now. And again, it's a little different too, even just covering songs, because I'd have to also learn the songs ahead of time. With drums, I feel like you can kind of, if you're a good drummer, you can pick up on the pattern and the transitions between the parts, and you can just go. Whereas for me, my ear is getting better, but like if I put on Songs for the Deaf, Queens of the Stone Age, a lot of those songs are weirdly in E or A minor, but that's a different thing. I could just solo over it and noodle, but I'm not even the best at soloing. Point is, and this is a long way of saying, it's not something I would really necessarily want to do. And I'd like the idea of being prepared before presenting my music to people. Maybe there's also some element of like the little bit of an imposter thing. Got plenty of that. And also maybe I do doubt my abilities a little. And so I think that's a little more honest and open about like you're sitting with an acoustic guitar and you're singing. There's no way to cover any of that. You just kind of have to be good. And I want to get better, but I don't think I'm ready for that. This is a long answer, so here's
Sure,
a duck.
no. Thank you very much for the duck. Even though you're able to create content either by streaming or uploading to YouTube, is there a certain creative aspect you get out of making Red Vox music videos?
I think there is. Garbage Land was a lot of fun because I filmed it in VR chat. And I had my friends become rat avatars and dance or scurry. And I was able to direct that and literally say, hey, can you go over here? And I'm going to pan the camera this way while you run past and go down the street. And there's, I worked at public access TV for a while. I have done video shoots, I've done video edits. Being able to direct for zero budget in VR and actually have people like want to make a scene work, even for a silly rat video, was weirdly, tremendously creatively fulfilling. And then people's reaction to it was very positive. That video did very well. So that was amazing. And it was cool to edit it all together and try to come up with something fun. I also came up with the idea for the Clone Me video, which was the Game Boy camera. And then I cut the footage together from the worst footage ever. No offense, Joel. But it was really just, hey, let's do 2 quick takes. It was so quick. We didn't have time to prepare. So I just said, get whatever shots you wanted. And to be fair, Joel and Frank did a great job. But, I had to definitely edit around that. So yeah, that was very fulfilling. As for other videos, I've done a couple for Visions and Afterthoughts, but I also hired some of my friends and some other people. And it's always cool to see people's interpretations. I want to shout out Great Sphinx in particular for the Remember video, which is astounding. And he did that in a couple weeks, and he came up with everything on his own. And he just said, okay, here's the shots I need. So I brought in a green screen to the studio. We filmed some stuff. I sent him the footage. And I said, all right, do your thing. And then he came back with something incredible. So I think that's our best video personally. But it can be fulfilling. And some of the stuff I did for Visions and Afterthoughts was just me filming random stuff throughout my life. Just like me on vacation somewhere, get some interesting footage. We all do it. Like, we have access to a camera 24/7 these days. You see a weird thing, you're in a weird place, you film it. And I was able to put that into a video, put some wacky effects on it, and just crust it up with like all kinds of weird colors and effects, and it ended up being kind of good. I wouldn't mind delving more into the video stuff, but to complete the answer, I am also like overextended. So I'm streaming, I'm writing the songs, writing the lyrics, playing the songs, dealing with a lot of the business aspects of this band, which there are surprisingly more than you'd expect, but merch, vinyl, all that stuff. And then that leaves little room for myself. And so I like it, and I know what I want for this band, but it can be tough to take on so many roles and to get all of them right. And so that's something in the future I wouldn't mind delegating a little bit more or having a little help. But it is fun, and it's very creatively fulfilling when it all comes together. And I'm very grateful that I get to do it and people actually like it. It's amazing.
From your 2021 top 100 albums, it's pretty easy to see that you have a wide range of tastes, with the Beatles' White Album being your #1 spot, partially because of its variety. That's still #1 right now, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Being able to rein in a single sound throughout an album can also be a selling point for what makes an album great. What do you think are the pros and cons of uniformity and spontaneity in music?
I agree that variety for me is like what I like from an album. That's why I like Physical Graffiti. That's why I like, the White Album, All Things Must Pass. I like a lot of albums like, even Rumors from Fleetwood Mac. There's stuff on there that's acoustic. There's stuff that's a little more bluesy. There's stuff that's a little psychedelic. Great album. And the uniformity of that album for me is in the production, is in the sounds of the instruments, the singing, and there's a lot of singers in Fleetwood Mac. So it's weird because that album feels uniform and yet there's plenty of variety. I think to me that's the most impressive thing a band can do is something like Rumors. You don't get bored listening to it. King Gizzard is another band that they'll do a different style every album, but it'll be very uniform on the album. But then the next album is completely different. I respect that a lot. But I also, and I think that's probably the best approach because if people like the single, they get the album or they listen to it and they're like, wow, this is all really cool. This is my kind of thing. But variety is what I like because something like the White Album is such a flawed album, but it's just kind of a journey and it takes you through so many different moods and you really hear all facets of that band. Every member has their moment, many moments actually, and it's just a phenomenal thing for me. I love listening to it. But yeah, there's this disadvantages, especially if you're not an established artist. You want to get yourself set up, and like, if you're Beatles big, you could do that. If you're Led Zeppelin big, you can do that. If you're just starting out and you release an album with like 15 different, wildly varying types of music of songs, that's going to be harder to find your audience. So that's yeah, I like both. There's definitely strength in both and weaknesses in both.
To continue from the top 100 albums topic, Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age was in your top 20 of the 100 albums, and you're not adverse to being in an Alice in Chains mood every now and then as well. I don't think it'd be wrong for listeners to assume you're not a heavy band in the terms of metal tonality, especially in comparison to a peer like Joel Varg-Skellthor. Where do you think those heavy bands imprint on your songs or sound?
I think you can hear it in some of the vocals. I think you can hear it in some of the choruses. I think Remember, for example, has that. There's a couple upcoming songs that are on the heavier side. But and I like, a lot of stuff like Queens of the Stone Age. Like they're the right kind of heavy for me. They're melodic, but especially Songs for the Deaf, they can get pretty loud. But metal has never really been my thing. I like plenty of metal. I like a lot of punk, but I like incorporating little bits of each into what I like, which is more, classic rock, early 90s alternative. I mean, Zeppelin was a really heavy band for their time, but you listen back compared to what has been created since then, they're just a rock band at that point. They're not really considered that heavy. Same for Sabbath. Sabbath is more revered as more of a metal band or proto metal. So I love all that stuff, but I think there's a part of me that maybe doesn't have that kind of rage where I like the music. I can definitely get into it, but I internalize all that stuff more as sadness than rage, and that's kind of what I think comes out in the music more. However, if you noticed, our show was much more up-tempo, energetic songs compared to our discography, which has a lot of down-tempo, kind of mopey songs. And there was something to playing that hour of music on stage and getting a lot of stuff out and having that level of energy that's just incomparable. So, and if you mention Alice in Chains, to me, that's another great example of like these guys did really interesting, dark, heavy music. But then you have Jar of Flies, which is one of the best acoustic albums of the 90s. And, one of my favorite albums of all time. So if it's not on the list, it should be. But it's it's a great, great album.
It might be in your honorable mentions. I'd have to check. Speaking of, I don't know if the camera catches it in the background. Let's see where the finger's dancing. Okay, yeah, right there. Yeah, somewhere around like there. I got myself the Music Bank, which has a bunch of their unreleased stuff, and some of that catalog you wouldn't think is Alice. Across Social Parasite, Queen of the Rodeo. I mean, there's stuff from just the first CD to the third CD to the second. I mean, all just wonderful stuff. It's nice to know that even in the early days, they didn't constrict themselves to one kind of sound. Like, they didn't need to make every album sound like dirt. It's okay to have a tripod, even if it's not everyone's favorite.
Yeah, people will get into it. I mean, if you listen to a band like Pearl Jam, too, just to go for another 90s band, their sound has changed. I personally don't like some of the 2000s Pearl Jam, but there's a lot of stuff on those first couple albums, the first like 4 or 5. It's just all over the place. And, I think they know their wheelhouse. They know what they're good at. They dip back into it, but they like to explore. You get bored as a band if you do the same thing over and over again, unless you're Nickelback, in which case you just make the same album 10 times in a row. And it's easy to shit on Nickelback because it's just like it became a meme. But that's the example of an album or a band where everything sounds very uniform and it works for them, but my ears get bored. I want to hear a band experiment and try different things. And there's a lot of different facets of rock. You can be a rock band and dig into like 50 subgenres in your career or more. And I think that's a great way that's my approach. That's what I like.
With how hyped you were on stage for the Too Many Games performance, I bet you were just 2 minutes away from pulling an Eddie Vedder by throwing your mic on the rafters, climbing to the top, and just hanging up there.
I was excited. I had a really good time on stage. I get why people get so addicted to performing live, but at the same time, I will tell you, the next day my legs were sore, and I was like, "Oh, I need to do more walking and running." And if I do that, then I'm still good for another 6 months. No, I'd be good for a while, but I definitely don't have that 20-year-old exuberance of like Eddie Vedder climbing the rafters and everyone like, oh, he's going to die. We're going to lose another frontman. But didn't happen. So,
as I was listening to your most recent Q&A on the Red Vox Twitch channel, I was surprised to see a lot of viewers asking for more Davies Gray. Even though you said that the songs were very generic rock, you do have to give yourself some credit for not being post-grunge with songs like Something in Your Mouth. The song still had substance. It does seem like a decent portion of the fan base like when you go heavier and sound like Blood Bagel. How does a band approach a heavier sound while still being Red Vox?
We just did. Remember. I think Remember is a perfect example. It's got the melodies that I like. There's a little bit of the psychedelic thing that we like with some of the sounds and the keyboards. And then the rest of it is just pure aggression chorus, I guess. And that to me is honestly, in a weird way, Remember feels the most Red Vox of most of our songs. And it's so fun to play, and it's become an instant staple in our set. And it's something that I think it's possible to do that even now at our age, where that's the right time for it. When a song idea comes about, it's like, just go with it. Whatever it is, make it work. I didn't set about to write a song that sounded like that, but I had the idea. And then when we got to the chorus, it's like, oh, this should be that. So it depends, really. And I get why people like Davies Gray. I'm glad people like it, but that was me in my early 20s, mid 20s, and I think the songs are a little generic, but you know what? They're pretty good. There's some stuff in there that I quite like. I think I can see listening back almost like as a separate person. Like I kind of like view it as like who I am now versus who I was. And there's commonalities for sure. And I see the seeds of what I like about my songwriting. But yeah, I wouldn't want to do another. I mean, in terms of writing another album, you're already getting my writing. It's just under the Red Vox name. Some similar. And Phil, who is our bassist in Davies Gray, is a great friend. Saw him not too long ago. Still love the guy, and he was great. But he also has a heavier sensibility. He likes a lot of heavier bands. So that's where I'm more into more melodic and more like like alternative stuff. So I think where we're at is pretty good, and I think there's a lot to look forward to on the next couple of projects that we have, where you're going to hear a mix of maybe some interesting synthesizer kind of stuff, maybe some more Tom Petty-esque stuff, or like REM, a lot of REM kind of sounds, which I can't escape from REM at this point. They've taken over my life, and they're just such a North Star. They're such an inspiration. But you're also going to hear some heavier stuff. Like, I'd say some of it is close to What Could Go Wrong and Another Light levels. If you like to Remember, there's others that I think you will enjoy. I mean, you heard some of the new ones, and even those, they're still, the album versions are going to be different, and some of those new ones are going to end up kind of morphing over time a little bit, and who knows what direction they'll take. But pretty exciting, honestly. Like, I'm in my head, I'm already picturing there's like 25 or 26 songs that we have just recorded in some form. And I have like another 10 that I've written since then that I'm like, oh God, I can't keep up. So lots to look forward to. Everyone, I'll say this, I genuinely believe if you like one phase of Red Vox or another, there's something to look forward to. Whether it be a couple songs or one song or half an album, there's stuff that sounds like all of our stuff. And then there's stuff that sounds a little bit different than anything we've done. So that's where we're at right now, at least. And that keeps it interesting and exciting for me. So whatever song ideas come about, just do it justice. Make it as good as it can be and serve the song. And then I think that's how we get some decent stuff.
You've watched a few Rick Beato videos, so I'm sure you're prepared to answer this. It's totally not going to be a difficult and confusing question. Absolutely. It's going to be a normal question. Absolutely. It wasn't just a random thrown-in question at all. I'm going to cut this bit now. You've stated plenty of times how lucky you are not only to have a thriving career on Twitch, but also to be able to pursue music in a way you previously only dreamed of. Even though you're not shaking hands with the big wigs in the music industry, what are the next steps you think the industry should take, both as a listener and a practitioner of music?
I'll give you an example. We should be paying, bands should be paying streamers to play their music, not the other way around. Like an artist or a band should like even give a little bit of their Spotify revenue to say a streamer who's playing their music to 10,000 people. Or like maybe there's an easy way to go on Twitch and say, here's a song available. And if you play this, you get, $100 from our revenue. Because that to me is the way music is promoted. It's not radio anymore. It's not like going into a store and seeing a vinyl, which is cool. It still happens, but it's not like how you get massive. Because at the moment, what happens is if you're a streamer or a YouTuber, you get punished for playing music. You get revenue taken away from you when it should be the opposite. So I think that's what the industry needs to do is recognize that the word of mouth of today is digital and it's people that stream and play games or play, talk about their favorite things or, like Rick Beato, with his massive Beato book that you can kill someone with because it's so big. But, people like that do end up getting music out there. So that is a huge thing. And then the idea of the industry, there's just this homogenized kind of sound that's so promoted and like the same writers that keep being used to write a lot of the pop hits. And I can't tell artists and pop apart. And I'm definitely an old man yells at cloud, but so does this guy. This alien right here, he's not just yelling at clouds, he's yelling at galaxies because he doesn't know the music either. He doesn't know how to tell it apart. And it really does sound all very, very similar to my ear. And I just kind of walk into a store and hear it. I don't hear it anywhere else. And rock is just kind of chilling, just kind of laying low. And there's some great bands out there that I feel could be even bigger. But it's just not, I don't know how they promote. I don't know who they're putting their money behind. The joke about the industry plant makes me laugh because I don't know what that fully means. And I don't know how that's even happening. But I kind of get why people feel like there are artists that are just being planted, like picked and like, okay, here's what we're going to do with you. We're going to make you this, this, and this. Okay, here you go. I don't even know if that's happening. But if it was, I'd be like, okay, yeah. But it might also be good for the industry in a way too. I just don't know what the industry is anymore. For me, I'm lucky that we have never had a label, which I wouldn't be opposed to a label that gets our music and actually gives a shit. And a small label, not a huge one, not something that's going to end up becoming like, well, we need 3 albums this next year and we need you to sound like this. No, a label that's going to have us sound like us and help us reach more people that like this kind of music and maybe get some shows. That's great. But the industry doesn't compute because we just kind of had, again, I'm lucky because I had the streaming career, which was able to push people to the music. Then the music was decent enough, I hope, that the algorithms started pushing it on people and they started saying, oh, this is pretty good. I'm gonna listen to this band. And then we end up doing a show at a game convention and we have like 600-700 people and like 200 or 300 people more that couldn't even get in the room. That's not a huge thing. Like, that's not a stadium. But for a band with no label that doesn't have radio friendly hits, that there is no industry to promote rock really, and just totally grassroots. Incredible, and it felt absolutely amazing to hit that pinnacle for us. And I hope there's more. It's different than it used to be. And it's not just a matter of making good songs. Label or industry finds you and then puts all their force behind you. I think it's more industry finds someone who's interesting and then helps them become what they need to become a huge artist and gives them the resources and the talent necessary for them to become what is proven to work. Maybe a little edge, a couple differences. Again, could be old man yelling at cloud. This is just my perspective from the outside. That's all this is. And if it's accurate, great. If it's not, that's okay too.
Yeah, as someone who's definitely dipped their whole hand into the music industry, but when I think Vinny Vinesauce, I think music industry, like walking up to the Sex Pistols and Led Zeppelin and just being like, music guy, am I right? That's exactly my image of you.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
You called yourself Kurt Kobain. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how you escape that one. You got to live with that now.
Yeah.
You're Kurt.
Yeah. I actually want to expand upon that. That was actually not a planned retort. Because it's always weird how do you introduce yourself to your audience when you're, here's a round of applause for the alien and the drummer and the guitarist. And by the way, no, really, you shouldn't have. So I didn't think about that. I didn't have that planned. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, and I'm Kurt Cobain. And I was like that, I made like a face. But the reason that was funny to me was that, you can't, I can't escape the comparison because I'm wearing a cardigan on stage. And I also scream, and there's a slight similarity. So people have made the comparison plenty. And in the 90s, that was a death sentence. You could not even cover Nirvana in the 90s because they were so big a thing that you'd have to kind of stay away from them. You don't want to even touch them because you can't. And also because it was overplayed and overdone and you're not cool. Listen to this band that's way heavier and way louder and, that no one knows. It's more cool that way. Nirvana sold out. What are you talking about? That's my perspective on it. But for me, the idea that it's been 30 years, I'm fine to make fun of myself a little bit. And at the same time, there's almost an endearing quality when people compare because that's the music I loved growing up. And I thought that he was one of the best in that type of music. But I didn't plan that. It just kind of happened. And then I was like, do I regret this later? I might. We'll find out. Because people were coming into my chat room and they were like, hey, Kurt. I'm like, oh.
Oh, shit. Well, it's your bed. You made it. So we'll see where that takes you.
Yeah. Rest in peace, me.
Yeah, rest in peace. They made so much good music across In Utero and Another Light.
Thank you. I'll take all the credit for that thing.
Across centuries, music has stayed a constant in terms of human expression and creativity, sharing and giving life to words and feelings to listeners. One thing I didn't know and learn in this interview is how big writing is for you. In terms of creating music and how much fun that can be, or just the creative aspect itself for you. Removing the parasociality your career can bring, is there a feeling of duty to give meaning to your words when it comes to lyricism?
Yeah, I think so. But I kind of weirdly am moving a little bit away from that in my mind, where there's also something to abstraction, where people are going to find their own meaning. Lyrics are important to me, and I always try to improve, and it helps me. It's like a therapy in a weird way. It's like getting out some of my feelings through the lyrics. And I've done so pretty directly at times. I've done so kind of abstractly at times. But one thing that I saw was, and again, I'm sure bigger artists saw this with their own work more immediately, but it took me a while to see this, which was people just interpret the song to what fits their own life. I've seen songs of mine interpreted as a certain type of thing that I have no experience with, and I would have no business writing about. But that's what it means for them, because maybe it has helped them. I don't mind people coming up with their own meanings, which is why I don't often say what my songs are directly about. But if people are like, well, he meant this definitely, or like Vinny wrote this song about this perspective. You know, sometimes I put myself in a character when I write, but there are some certain topics that I just don't have any intimate knowledge about, you know, or like, for example, certain types of mental illness. I've seen some of my songs interpreted as such. And I'm like, I wouldn't write about that because that's too heavy. And I don't, you know, that's like, I would get a lot of details wrong. All this to say that I could write about a circus and not say that it's about a circus, and someone would interpret it as being about something completely different. Andy Serkis could be about him, you know, Gollum. Now that would be a gross misinterpretation. But at the same time, you can really, lyrics are a weird thing because on some level they're very important, on some level they're not important at all. I don't really even think about lyrics when I'm listening to a song the first time. That's like a listen, you know, I'll listen to the lyrics maybe like third, fourth, fifth time in, and then I'm like, oh, that's a cool line, that's a cool meaning. This is a long answer, but the truth is it's different for each song. And some songs I would like to go completely abstract and not have it mean anything in particular to me and just see how people interpret it. But I still tend to write with something in mind, and I still tend to write from a perspective of here's this human experience that I've had, this human condition, and it's really bugging me, or it's something that I like, and I want to talk about it, and I do it in my lyrics. And in an age where everyone is so direct and says everything, you know, on their channel, on their stream, on their whatever, and they just say it, and it's like, you know, whether it be something nice or something hateful or some kind of drama, that's what the currency is right now, it seems, in culture. Again, old man yelling at clouds, damn clouds, but I feel like it's okay to say what you have to say in a more vague way and let people figure it out. And when they do, it's more meaningful. And that's why I love a lot of music that I love, is because when I eventually arrived at the meaning of some of these things, I'm like, oh my God, that's what that means. And when you put it to music, it's powerful. And it's, you know, there are things about my life that were not that hard, and some things were pretty damn hard. And that music was there for me. And when I figured out what some of these artists were talking about and went through, it helped me figure out how to proceed and how not to feel alone and how to not feel too weird about it. And I want to do that as well for others, but I also don't want it to be such a highfalutin grand thing. You know, it's at the end of the day, I'm just singing songs, and you know, some of those songs are about rats in New York City eating pizza.
Yeah. And sometimes it's okay to just say, I'm thinking about the rain, and not really specifying what you're thinking about.
Right, and that's kind of a lot of artists I like do that. And what is the rain? I mean, for some people, rain is a great thing, you know, and some cultures, rain is the most important thing they have. And for a lot of other people, it's like, oh, more rain. So it's, I like that kind of lyric. You just pointed out one that I think is an example of stuff I want to do more of.
Okay, we got a few more questions. Do you want to take a quick water break first?
Go, keep going.
Okay.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to drink water. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me spit that back out. That was a stupid. The name Red Vox, like some of your lyrics and riffs, came to you in a dream. And while such a phenomenon is not the first of its kind, it's kind of a way to identify your band and its sound when it's not pigeons or rats. Dreams is like the third hallmark. To you, what do dreams mean on a metaphysical level? What makes a dream remarkable?
I make sure I get a lot of sleep because I think dreaming, first of all, sleep is good for you. And this culture of, oh, bro, I slept like 4 hours. It's not good. No. Sleep like 7, 8. And it's just better for you. And I feel good. And my youthful complexion is probably partially because of my arduous sleep schedule. But I like sleeping because I do get stuff from dreams and they do help me figure stuff out. And I think it is your brain, your subconscious processing stuff that is a little too tough to process out in the real world sometimes. But I think I'm at the point where I also maybe believe that we do get stuff from someplace in the ether, like Neil Young said about, fishing for songs and like just pulling them out of the sky or something. Because I got so many great ideas. Like in the garden, I was in and out of like sleep, and I got the chorus for that, and I worked backwards. And a lot of that song, was just like, well, it starts with a dream, and then I'm driving, and I get another part to it, and I'm like, wow, okay, where'd this all come from? Could be subconscious. I wouldn't doubt that, but I also feel like maybe there's some other thing. Maybe it's as close to the divine as you can get on this planet without doing a psychedelic or something. But yeah, dreams are definitely got the song, some songs. I got some ideas for various things like just in my life that have helped me, and I got the band name, and they're to me very useful and very sometimes a little scary, but it's worth that. That's worth it, I think. And even that you can get something from. And if you interpret your dreams too much, you have the risk of letting them ruin your life or run your life, not ruin. But I think just kind of acknowledging this is what being a human is and taking the useful stuff can be really beneficial.
Okay, the two big things to remember about dreams. Don't look at mirrors and try to remember your dreams. And if you can't do the second one, you're fucked.
That's why it's good to write them down. As soon as you wake up, write them down.
Oh no, I can't remember anything. It's just black when I wake up.
Melatonin.
Okay. All right. I'll be sure to tell my doctor that Dr. Vinny prescribed it to me.
He's the one who
Uh-huh.
is prescribing to you
Okay.
to write down your dreams.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Let them be memes.
Absolutely.
Cut that.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask you about the upcoming album as a closer, but we already discussed that. With what you have in the works, what you plan to release, and what you plan to keep in the demo vault, cranking that rusty door shut. But are there any future endeavors that you'd like fans to look forward to?
I mean, I'm hoping to do some shows in New York, but getting, again, 5 people into a room to practice and then finding the gig is work, and it's not something I'm particularly experienced with. Luckily, that show that we did is probably going to help us get more shows, and that's cool. But we just have to take it one step at a time, and also keep in mind we have our own lives, and I don't think a tour is in the works. That's a very big prospect, and I don't personally think I'm suited to a tour. But I would say I'm more suited towards doing a show once in a while and maybe traveling a little bit, but not too much. But that would be fun. I had a lot of fun doing that show, and I think some of those songs that are in that set, some are already recorded, some are not recorded yet, and some maybe one or two is probably never going to be recorded. They're just going to be live songs only. So, that could be fun to continue those songs. But then there's a whole bunch of other songs that are just, we don't want them to necessarily sit in a demo vault, but trying to figure out, okay, what's right for the next album, right? So we handpick, and then we say, oh, these sound good together. These are strong. Put them on the next one. We also have a bunch that we know are going to be on the one after. Whatever that one is, we just like the songs, and we can put together another album. We're still probably going to be left with songs that we completed or damn near close to completed in like 2020, 2021. So whether they end up on an actual album or we put out, I had this idea of maybe putting out an album of B-sides, there's some great B-side albums that, Radiohead has great B-sides, love them or hate them, Oasis has amazing B-sides. And it would be cool for us to put out stuff that like Me Oh Well, like Clone Me, Garbage Land. I think it would be cool to put some of the stuff that we have released, but we're never officially on an album, put those on with some of the other ones that we have, and just have like a 10-song album of stuff that we like, but isn't necessarily, designed to be a cohesive experience. Just a little compilation. So I mean, to me, that sounds like we have a lot of that's like 3 full albums. You know, like we have the next one, which has a name and everything. We have the one after that, which maybe has a name, I don't know. And then we have a B-side compilation. And even if, let's just say, for some reason I could never write or sing again, you know, or whatever, and like I just, you know, I got a spell got cast on me. We do have a lot of material that is ready to go for the future, and that to me makes me feel good. But I also can't wait to just release these things because some of them have been sitting around for like a couple of years, and it's like, oh God, wait, that song's not out yet, you know. So that's what's in our future. I'm not looking to be a giant band. I don't need to be some big mega band. But I like the organic growth, and I would love to play like little places, small theaters, maybe play to another 700 people sometime. I think that would be a nice thing for me to look forward to in my life, and also to share the music with people. And I might once in a while put a little effort into promoting a little bit of the music. You know, I'm not going to do like a giant media blitz or anything. I don't even really know how to. But, you know, here and there, if I believe in something, I might try to put a little money behind it and see what happens. But yeah, you know, I just want people that like rock music to find us. That would be all I need. That'd be great.
Well, Vinny, before you turn into Norm Macdonald's pitching character for Mike Tyson's Mystery Team, because that does sound like what you in particular would be afflicted with, most likely.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I did. I hope to continue to see your your band thrive and grow.
You want to see my granddad?
No.
Thank you. You did a really great job, and I appreciate the interview, and I'm glad that you know our music as well as you do, and appreciate it as much as you do. So thank you.
And everyone at home, take care. Oh, is that going to be my new thing? Pointing at the camera.
Something like that.